Where'd this idea of the Modern Wisdom podcast come from for you? And what's the word wisdom mean?
So I was wanting to start a podcast. I wanted an excuse to be able to speak to people that I thought were interesting. And I just needed a name. It was going to be called Mind Over Matter, or Crushing a Tuesday. Crushing a Tuesday is a quote from Tim Ferriss, which I actually quite like. The idea that it's like the most normal, average day of the week, and you're still supposed to crush on that.
Not hump day or anything like that.
No. And it just happened to be that it's the only time in all of my years and years and years of trying to build businesses that I woke up in the middle of the night with a flash of inspiration. I woke up at 3 a.m. and I was like, Modern Wisdom, that's it. Checked, hadn't been registered, and just went to town with it straight away. When it comes to wisdom, I think being able to accurately predict the impact that your actions will have in the real world. Like just being able to make good predictions about what's going to happen, being able to understand yourself and the world around you. It's a combination of timeless insights. It's a combination of adapting where we're at now with your nature, with what's preset, with agency and sovereignty and stuff like that. It's a blend of everything. And for me, I just wanted, I felt a tension between the modern world and what was passed down sort of traditional insights. And I wanted to try and work out a way to blend those two things together.
Are you in search of something in particular, you think, in talking to these different influential people?
It's changed over time. So for me, when I very first started doing the show, I was still coming out the back of a long career of being a club promoter. And that meant that because I hadn't been sleeping particularly well, 4 a.m. finishes 2 or 3 nights a week. I always thought throughout all of my 20s, I thought I had depression. I was just adamant that this low mood, once every 2 to 3 months, I would be kind of bedridden with existential dread for, 2 or 3 days. And then I'd get back out of it. And I just thought that was me. I thought that was my demeanor. I have like a little bit of a history of depression further up in my family. It's pretty heritable. And then I realized when the pandemic happened, that was the first time in my entire adult life that I had a stable sleep and wake pattern, ever. From the age of 18, I'd never gone to bed at the same time every single night for longer than like 6 days, right? Because I was a club promoter and I was very good. What I did with the company that I ran was very successful, but you've got to pay the price. And the price is being awake until 2, 3, 4 in the morning, 2, 3, 4 nights a week. And the byproduct of that was suboptimal sleep, suboptimal mood. And then because of when you work really, really hard at this, I was having what I didn't realize at the time, but turned out to just be like burnout. I was getting burned out and having a miniature little breakdown. And I would feel guilty. The really strange thing about it was that I would feel guilty about feeling sad and not being able to get out of bed because ostensibly there wasn't anything wrong. There wasn't I remember I went to my GP in the NHS and I said, I think I might be depressed. I was maybe 24. It took a good bit of, courage for me to go and say that to some woman, doctor, lady. The male denial of mental health problems is pretty fucking strong. And I went and I spoke to this lady and she said, what's going on in your life? I said, nothing. Like I run a successful business. I'm just finishing my 2nd degree. I don't have any money worries. I don't have any relationship worries. And she says, well, what about this? What about this? Is there a problem with your family, with your finances, with your blah, blah? And I was like, no. And she said, oh, I don't really know. There's not really much that we can do. There's a 1-page printout about how mental health works, like toddle on. And the long story short is that I was struggling with working out who I was toward the end of my 20s, having achieved a life of renown and whatever, like status and success in a way that modern society might tell a young man that he's supposed to achieve it, with accolade and like transactional relationships with people and women and stuff like that. But I didn't find it fulfilling and I couldn't work out why. And at the beginning of the podcast, that was one of the reasons why a lot of the conversations, if people go back and listen to any of the early episodes, a lot of them are around mental health. A lot of them are around like just really trying to understand me. Why am I struggling to connect in this way? Why am I struggling to feel so good about myself? And that's grown over time now, the last 18 months or so, especially since I moved to Austin. Dude, I feel it's a different person. Like my demeanor is different. The texture of my mind is different. And this isn't just from changing my sleep. It's 1,000 hours plus of meditation. It's reading, it's training, it's more sunlight, it's better friends, it's more friends, it's a job that I existentially care about, but all the way down. But, you know, to anybody that feels like they've got lock-in with the way that their nature exists, like, I couldn't be more different. The inner texture of the way that I feel couldn't be more different than it was only 7 years ago. And from the outside, 7 years ago, coming off the first season of Love Island with the director of one of the biggest events companies in the UK, it would have looked like, well, what have you got to complain about? And there was so much headroom for me to improve.
Power Project family, we talked to you about mouth tape before, and it's time to get better quality sleep, stop snoring, and wake up better rested. Andrew, how can they get their hands on some hostage tape?
You guys got to head over to hostagetape.com/powerproject. You'll receive free shipping plus a free, incredible, awesome bedside tin. Again, hostagetape.com/powerproject. Links to them down in the description as well as
Yes,
podcast
Daddy.
show notes. Oh,
Whoa,
God.
yes, Daddy.
Whoa.
Look at this. Magic.
I thought something was wrong with the audio, but you just have mouth tape on.
It's called being a ventriloquist.
There you go. What about how to become a better interviewer? Did you go through any courses like the one you just mentioned for YouTube?
No, there isn't anything for that.
Mm-hmm.
I might fix that at some point over the next year. I might work with Miles, my speech and diction coach, on trying to, it would be for conversationalists generally, but, you know, for people that just want to become better communicators. The principles that I follow behind that I think are most important are: don't be scared of silence. You need to be able to use silence effectively when you're speaking, and especially as an interviewer. Give the guest room to breathe. There's a really famous clip of Lex interviewing Elon, and he says, "When will we make it to Mars?" And someone, quite rightly, because it's an epic segment of the podcast, started a timer on this clip, and it runs for 32 seconds of silence while he's just sat there, just watching. And then Elon goes, 2042. 32 seconds later. Really, really good. And the reason for that is, if you're talking about interviewing, it's not just a conversation between you and the guest. It's a performance. It's a performance for the entire audience to enjoy. And they have their own thoughts. They're not contributing to the conversation, but we talk about bullying in school or something, and you need to give their brain time to fill in what they're thinking about. And if you just plow through all of your different topics, they're not, it's not sitting with them. They're not able to reflect on what you've just said because they're constantly being distracted by what's coming up next. Use of silence is important. Not doing double questioning is something that nervous people do. Nervous interviewers do this a lot, and I was so bad with this. This is all shit that I've learned, right? This isn't me like pointing the finger at shit interviews. This is me pointing the finger at me 4 years ago. So let's say that you've got a question that you want to ask somebody, and you're not quite sure if you're pushing the limits personally, or you're not quite so confident in the question. So you'll say something like, Nsima, I know that you suffered a little bit with not having too many friends when you were younger, and you played a lot of role-playing games. How did you get over that when you needed to start doing a podcast? Was it the sort of thing that you needed to do in step by step? And your nervousness interjects after the question, and you start to offer up options. And the problem when you start to offer up options is that you've now constrained the creativity that the guest has into perhaps a binary. And if you say, okay, here's two things. Was it that you used your confidence from football, or was it that you just learned how to do it as a byproduct of getting older? Well, what if it was anything that isn't those two? I now need to say, no, it's not that, and no, it's not that, and then run on. But most people will, that's a leading question, right? So you will make the episode less creative by giving someone a leading question. So don't double question, like just ask the question and let it sit. And that leads into the silence thing, right? Because you need to be comfortable with just going, like me saying to Goggins, why would you go back and see a tyrant of a father? And just allowing it to be like, that's a fucking awkward question. Like, why go back and you wrote an entire book about how this guy had affected your life the first time around, and you've gone back to go and see him again. But you need to leave that to sit in the air, getting comfortable with silence, but getting comfortable with awkwardness as well. Asking why is super, super important. So earlier on, there was a question about the galaxy thing, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you have to be clear when someone doesn't when you feel like there's a little bit of a hole in whatever it is that they're talking about. And it's kind of like how you feel the membrane of a surface or whatever, and you're like, hang on, there's a gap there. Something is missing from the explanation. And if you don't understand, the audience probably doesn't understand. So like, treat yourself like the avatar, I think, for the audience. So comfortable with silence and awkwardness. Don't double question, and ask for clarity when you're uncertain around what the guest meant with regards to something. They bring up a topic or they use some term or whatever, and you go, hang on, what's that mean? And the audience is really, really appreciative because it shows that you're being intellectually humble as well. So those would be like important elements, I think, that can contribute to you being a better interviewer. And the final thing is just do crushing amounts of conversations. You know, if you do 1,000 hours of anything, you're going to get good at it. And that's why you look at a Rogan or a Tim Dillon or a Sam Harris. Those guys cut their teeth doing thousands of hours of keynote presentations or live comedy. You didn't get to see. Everyone says like, you know, Rogan, he's 2,000 episodes in, he's been great. Go back to episode 1 and see how different it is. And you go, yeah, but his episode 1 was actually like episode 5,000. If you look at the number of hours that he put in terms of presentation, that guy had done so much preparation before he ever stepped foot in front of a podcast microphone. Because of his comedy career, because of his acting career, because of his presenting career, because of his commentary career. You go, okay, you, fledgling podcaster from wherever you are, you have to practice in public and you have to learn out loud, right? Everyone is going, I don't know Joe Rogan's first 2 decades of comedy. I've never seen anything from back then. So all of that stuff just been lost. Your stuff is going to be permanently recorded on the internet for the rest of time. So yes, you're going to suck when you first start. It's going to be terrible, but just continue to iterate. And like a final interesting statistic is that 90% of podcasts don't make it past episode 3. And of the 10% that do, 90% of them don't make it past episode 20. So by making 21 podcasts, you're in the top percentile of all podcasters ever in history.
Woo!
That's all it takes. That's all it takes.
Yeah, and there's like something like 45% that only have done 1 episode.
Yeah.
So that's a fucking, yeah, it's a crazy market to get into.
Bad Project family, we appreciate you checking out this clip. Check out another one. Just go check out another one. Or comment down below and let us know what you liked about this one. But we love you guys, and we're going to keep bringing you the heat. So comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff, okay? Peace.